Hi, Jeffrey. Welcome to the High Vibration Living Podcast.
Hi, Whitney. Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
So great to have you here. This is such a treat for me. I love your story about how you've evolved your career from an engineer to an energy healer, but I want to hear more about the pings that you got to first start exploring energy medicine, energy healing, learning what your own gifts were. Can you back us up a little bit and share?
Sure. Yeah, you bet. Yeah. So, for me, it really started all the way back when I was in college. So I was at the time getting a degree in computer science and a degree in mathematics. And, that was, the scientific world was kind of my big interest. So what happened for me actually, and I think this is true for a lot of people listening too, probably, that I started having some experiences that I couldn't really explain. So
Mhm.
just some things would happen, like I was in the cafeteria, and another student walked by, and I saw this big bright light around her. I was like, I don't really understand what's happening right now because I'm not dreaming, but like that's weird. And it turns out
Yeah.
we ended up connecting and being really good friends and dating, and so things like this started happening that I couldn't explain. But for me, that was the call to look a little deeper. Like, if
Mhm.
things are happening in my life that don't fit into my beliefs or I don't understand why they're happening, that's fascinating. Like for me, it was never scary. It was just like, oh, I want to lean in. I want to find out more. I want to go deeper. And so, that just continues to happen over the years. More and more things, if you're open to it, more and more strange or unexpected experiences will come your way. And there's a big opportunity to kind of step in and explore those more deeply, and also to look at, for me, uh, where did something that happened doesn't fit into my beliefs? Then probably my beliefs aren't completely correct. Now, I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, right? We all think that whatever we believe is true is absolutely true for everybody at all times, in all situations. But
Yeah.
it's not. What we believe is true is just kind of what's in our brain right now. It's a little shortcut, to try to, kind of predict the future, which we're not very good at. And so for me, I started like every time something happens, even now that I can't explain, I kind of look at that. Oh, what did I think would happen, and why did I believe that would happen, or why did I believe these things weren't possible? Because it really helps for me to when I shine the light on those things, I realize I don't really have any good reason to believe the world is the way I believe it is,
Yeah.
other than
Have
when I
any,
have my own experiences. And so once we have our own experiences, like,
yeah.
that's to me, that's data. I had an experience, whether other people believe it or not, it doesn't really matter. I had an experience, and it's like, that's what I want to build my beliefs around. My actual experiences, my actual life.
And at any time during your process or your life, have you kept in a notebook or a notes app where you write down those synchronicities or those moments where your belief systems have been tested?
I did way back, but those are all gone. I'm a little
Yeah.
older than the digital era, so it was on paper. That
Yeah.
stuff's all gone. But it is really helpful, especially there was a time where I was exploring dreams really deeply, trying to
Hmm.
understand what was happening and if they had meaning, if they were just some alternate universe, or kind of what was going on there. And yeah, it was really helpful. The more that you kind of write something down to remember it, the more you kind of uh, deeply experience it. You sort of like you can sort of contextualize what happened as you're telling yourself the story or telling somebody else the story. More information is coming in. That's one of the things that I think people don't realize is that we're always connected to just all the information in the universe. So that connection is deep within us. There's no way to really sever ourselves from all that information. But mostly we're not paying attention. We're paying attention to kind of the little things that have our attention or get our emotions stirred up. But if you're writing something down, like this, my mind is kind of open. I'm exploring this experience I had. I don't really have an answer, but I have curiosity. Then suddenly insights are coming in. And depending on our, kind of our belief system, we might say, like, my guides told me something, or I got a download, or, the universe is talking to me. Or it could just be that I know this without even realizing that it's new information, just feeling like this is something, that everybody knows that's true for everybody, even though it's not. So
Interesting.
it's really fun.
Yeah, I'm going through that phase again where the dreams are very vivid. So I'm just writing them down in the morning because I
Mhm.
find that I can look back 6 months from now and it'll help me make sense of things that went on in my life. It's never
Nice.
in the moment, but it's when I reflect later and I find that notebook.
Yeah, that's great. I do that at the end of the year. typically I'll spend a little time just on New Year's Eve, just reflecting on
Mm.
what happened in this year, and then
Mm-hmm.
also kind of noticing, what was I thinking a year ago? And almost always when I look back a year, I kind of chuckle a little bit, like, a year ago I was really thinking, I was really into this particular thing or thinking this was true. And I don't really, I kind of changed now. I don't have that. I'm not in that same place anymore. And that really helps me to look back and kind of contextualize, but also realize I changed. And that next year I'll be looking back here, chuckling at myself right now. So it kind of helps me keep it light, not take myself too seriously. It's just, we're just learning and growing and doing our best. There's no need to pretend that we know what we're doing.
And that's the part of spirituality that I really do like is when we use it to keep life fun and playful. And I think
Yeah,
that's kind of what we need more of right now. But there's also a lot of
definitely.
people that are in a place where they just don't feel good. And so they turn to spirituality for healing
Hmm.
and for health purposes. And what I always find interesting is I I have seen that it's kind of women that go to that first, and then they kind of drag their brothers, their dads, their boyfriends, their partners along with them. Some men gravitate to it and understand it and feel it, but a lot don't. So I've definitely talked to a lot of men who have gone to a session with anywhere from a shaman to, you know, a variety of different types of energy healers, and they say they couldn't physically feel anything versus me. I can sit down and open my hands to meditate and my hands are burning or tickling or the
Yeah,
sensations are so
yeah.
strong for me. Hey, can you share what you know about why men and women feel things so differently when it comes to spirituality?
Sure. Yeah, I've seen kind of both sides to that. Like, definitely,
Hmm.
there's more women than men that come to my classes, and that's been true for all the
Hmm.
years I've been teaching. And I see that in schools too. If you're going to an energy healing school, there's more women than men. But I don't know that it necessarily means that men are less sensitive because I've seen the other side too. I've
Yeah.
worked with a lot of men where we would do hands-on healing trades, and they can feel the energy just as strong, just as easily. I think it's a human ability rather than as much to do
Yes.
with our gender, right? But culturally, and maybe less so now, but definitely when I was younger, it wasn't very safe for men to have something out of bounds. Kind of the program was like, if I think of my own context, when I was really getting into energy healing and energy readings and spirituality in general, I was also working at a software job. And in the beginning, I was working for the government, actually, for the Department of Energy. And I had a security clearance, and I was afraid to tell anybody what I was doing because I might lose my security clearance and lose my
Yeah.
job. Like it might really impact, the my ability to be a provider, which is, men have this idea that we're supposed to be providers, which is kind of outdated too. All these kind of baggage that we're carrying of, roles that are men and male and female that don't really make any sense in the modern world. But we're still carrying all of that. We still have those feelings and so on. But for men, I would say, if men want to kind of get through that hesitation and step into something that's a little uncomfortable, one, you can think of it as it's a great way to connect with the women around you. So
Mm.
like if you want to connect with your partner or your sister or just connect with more women in general, hey, that's a great place to do it because you're sort of in a world that's, if you're going to energy healing, for example, you're going to meet more women there than men. And so you're going to be able to learn about a healthy way to connect,
Mhm.
with women. So that's really nice. Also, I think I don't know. I would guess that I'm in my mid 50s, but I'd guess people that are in their 30s or even 20s probably aren't even thinking about this as much. It's probably a little more open to reaching out, but I don't know. That's just my guess.
Do you still do hands-on healing, or do you just teach people now how to learn how to do it and be the teacher or do it for themselves?
Yeah, primarily I teach now,
Yeah.
um, but I do hands-on healing, when it comes up in daily life. So my wife and I will work on each other. If I'm teaching at a conference or something, then usually set aside some time to work with people that come through or friends need help. So it's not something that really turns off, but I don't do it as a profession where I charge for it anymore.
Hmm.
I just what I found was there came a point in time where I had sort of checked that box. I'd spent over 10 years
Yeah.
as a full-time energy healer and reader, and it was great. I learned so much, and I was really feeling lucky that I could help people in that way. But I knew now it's time for me to move on to something else. It's time for me to have a larger impact than I can have one-on-one. And so that meant leaning into my teaching more.
And so when you need hands-on work yourself, do you usually turn to your wife? Do you have friends that work in certain modalities that you really lean towards? I'd love to know like how the healer gets healed or upgraded or tweaked when they need it.
Sure. Yeah. It's funny. These days, I didn't even realize it till you asked, but I haven't asked anybody for a healing in years. Things are kind of self-moderating right now.
Hmm.
Stuff still comes up, but I'm able to look at it, move the energy myself, and find a pretty good balance with it. And then my wife's always there too. Hisami's always there, and she sees energy really clearly all the
Yeah.
time. And so she'll kind of give me a little heads up. She'll be like, "Oh, remember today the energy's a little off." So I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's right. Okay." I kind of keep my eyes open for that.
Yeah.
But a lot of that I think comes from Hisami. I've been married to her for almost 15 years. And the last 7 years or so, we've been teaching together, and I've been learning Hisami's perspective on spirituality in the world,
Hmm.
which she calls spirit mind. And that system that we teach together now is very much about just taking care of yourself, learning how to bring yourself back to balance and not needing to rely on the outside world.
Yeah.
It's not like we would never, neither of us would ever say, don't get help when you need it. But if your habit is to look outside and think that other people can help you, you want to just pause for a minute and say, well, maybe let me just give it a shot. Let me kind of turn within.
Mhm.
Maybe there's some things I can do really quickly that'll make me feel better without having to rely on other people.
Yeah, without constantly having to outsource. What are the questions that you think we should be asking ourselves more often before we turn to outside help?
Yeah, well, the first one, I got to talk a little bit about Hisami then. So the way that her perspective on kind of life is really simple in some ways. She says the main place people are confused is that we're trying to live our entire life with just one mind. And she says, that there's a mind that she calls material mind, which is about, perfectly tuned for dealing with the material world. So if
Hmm.
you're going to drive your car somewhere, or you need to think about some things, or even your emotions, everything that's dealing with sort of your interface with the outside world, she calls material mind. And she says it's great for those situations, but it doesn't really have any connection inward. It's just dealing with kind of information and things on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
She says it's like if you had a flower and you were just focused on all the petals on the outside of the flower. Whether it's like your cool sunglasses, your car, your job, how much money you have, who you're dating, like all these petals around the flower. And she said, but if you're not connecting with your spirit mind, there's no center to the flower. And that's why when one of those kind of petals gets lost, it's such a panic that comes up within us. Oh, I need to rush to get a new job, or a new partner, or make some money, or we just feel this panic almost when
Hmm.
one of these external flower petals gets lost. But the opposite is true. So if you start building up and tuning in, start waking up your spirit mind and connecting with that more often, you start to notice how that center really blossoms. And now these petals are still nice to have. Like, of course, it's great to have money and to have nice things in the material world and relationships, but you still have value if those things come and go. Your value isn't based on this external connection or these external things. And so, I mentioned that because of your question. So that's the first thing that we say in the training is Isami recommends is just asking yourself what I'm feeling right now, what I'm worried about or afraid of or judgmental of. Which mind is this?
Mm-hmm.
And usually that's enough, especially if you spend a little time understanding these two minds, to say, oh, that's my material mind. And then, okay, all right, so that's what would my spirit mind say? Or, if I bring my material mind back and just kind of do a little breathing, bring it back into the space of spirit mind, back to the center where they work really well together, suddenly I have a completely different perspective. That's like you were asking who I go to for healing. That's the practice that I do right
Yeah.
now. It's just very simple. I notice that things are a little off. Like today, I woke up and I was working late last night playing on my computer doing some programming just for fun. And
I love that.
And so that energy was still circulating. I woke up, it was kind of, like my brain
Yeah,
was
still
thinking about
buzzing.
the stuff. And I was like, okay, that's not really the space I want for today. So I just take a couple breaths, notice that I'm present right here, and that material mind energy just came right into the center. And then it's like, I feel good again. Is it really that? It can be that simple.
Do you find in your classes that a lot of your students are leaning into this or wanting to learn this because there's a central theme that they're all struggling with or ruminating on or overwhelmed with at the moment?
We get a really wide variety, both in classes with Hisami, but also in my energy training at Mindvalley. I have a really broad set of people that come, so it can be really any kind of problems, and any age, any demographic. The I'd say the common thing is probably that people are noticing a little discrepancy between uh, what I value in the world, or who I'm being in the world, and then who I who I want to be. So it's kind of
Mm,
this internal versus external thing. It's
yeah.
like for me, I'll give a couple examples. I was in the software world. I was doing great. My career was really doing well. I had a nice house and nice car and good title and money and all this stuff and fun with my friends. And so on the outside, everything I created the life that I thought I was supposed to create. I was kind of living
Mhm.
the American dream, right? But it was terrible. Like just to wake up in my peaceful, secure place, drive my nice car to my cushy job was like torture. and I didn't understand
Yeah,
why. I'm like, how could this be torture? This is
yeah.
supposed to be success. There's nothing wrong here. But when I started looking within, I realized, oh, I'm here to be of service, and I'm not doing that right now. I'm buying things, or I'm making money and spending money. I'm programming, but is what I'm doing actually helping anybody? And unfortunately, the answer was really clear. It's like, no, most software doesn't even ship. And if it does, maybe it helps some people. It's just the nature of that industry at the time. So it's like, wow, you know, I, I'm kind of using all my time and energy to just kind of fill up my bank account, I guess. And I'm like, that's not what I want. It's not making me happy. It's not making me feel
Mhm.
fulfilled. And so I think that's one of the main things that I see as people in that sense of like, I'm at this crossroads where my external world, what I've created, suddenly doesn't match with the new desires I'm finding. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Or
think
the
it goes back
yeah.
I think it goes back to like the question that a lot of people ask is like, how do you use spirituality to find your purpose? And do you need to find it, or do you just need it to find you? So,
Yeah.
meaning you need to start spending your time doing the things that light you up, and the purpose will
Yeah.
naturally present itself to you. I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think you're right on. I've noticed a lot of stress over the years with myself and with many students and clients around this idea of what's my purpose.
Hmm.
And if you look at this kind of model that we have two minds, that question is the material mind trying to come up with an answer that the spirit mind already knows, right?
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
can't. So like asking yourself that question, thinking about it, doing exercises, like ruminating on it, obsessing with it,
Mhm.
that's all that's going to do is make you feel bad because you can't actually answer it. Or I guess we can like come up with an answer that feels likely, and then spend years. I did this a few times, then spend like years working toward that. This is my purpose. I'm going to do this, and then you get there, you get to what you thought was your purpose, and you realize, I realized I don't really feel any different now. I don't feel any more fulfilled now than I did before, even though the entire
Yeah.
outside world has changed. I've rearranged my whole identity, spent, 5 or
True.
more years working on something, and I don't feel any more fulfilled. So that's
Yeah.
that's kind of the second set of people that come in that are in that place, like, oh, I changed my whole world. And so why isn't everything better? Why doesn't the inside feel better? Oh, because I'm still focusing my attention out here. I've changed my life, but I haven't really brought myself into the center, even if my life looks better according to whatever my plan was.
Yeah. So, what's a tool or two that people can do after they listen to this podcast
Mhm.
episode, let's say before they go to bed, what's a question or
Mhm.
a practice that they could do so they could better feel or hear
Mhm.
or just connect to their spirit body or their spirit mind?
Sure. Yeah. So I would say, yeah, two things. So one, to connect with spirit mind is just about being present in the moment. So you can do something really simple. You can just focus on what you're touching. That's one of the real simple tools Hisami recommends. Just like, if you're kind of like touching your arm, that'll bring you right into the present moment. Or you can notice where you're sitting on your chair, laying in your bed. You can notice your breath. All these things that are here and now. That'll bring you right into the space of spirit mind. And the second thing I would say is for the thoughts that are going by, the simplest tool I can give you is to start asking, is this mine or not mine? This is
Mm,
something actually a friend many years ago in Sedona introduced this to me. And I didn't
yeah.
understand at the time what she was saying. But now it totally makes sense. It's like if I'm thinking about something that's bothering me, like, oh, my social media, I looked online and I noticed that somebody else's social media looks better than mine, and or they're doing a podcast and I'm not doing one, or whatever insecurity we come up with, right? So we're always comparing ourselves. And so what you want to say is, oh, okay, is this feeling really mine or not mine? In that case, I might say, like if I ask myself, I'd say, well, it's true that I'm excited about circulating energy and helping people, but I don't actually have any big attachment on how that happens.
Mm,
I'm not ever really looking at social media, seeing if anybody liked what I did. But my goal is to just express myself and help people. So I think this fear actually isn't mine. This is just something outside. So this isn't mine or not mine is a really nice way to kind of sort through all of your thoughts. It's similar to as I was saying earlier. It's kind of like saying, where did this belief come from?
yeah.
Yeah. And if it's not coming from within, from your own experience, then you can kind of just let it go.
You know, I love that you're breaking down some of these practices
Mm.
because it's simpler than we all make it out to be. There's a saying
Yeah.
that Dr. Joseph Michael Levery says it's simplicity is divinity. So
Yeah.
sometimes the practices, the food, the things that are going to
Mm.
get us where we really want to go are actually really light and simple and easy. It doesn't have to be complicated. The questions we ask ourselves don't have to be complicated.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. There's this feeling that the material mind has that complexity is going to be better. And that if I know lots of things, if I take lots of classes, if I get lots of external information into me and memorize it, and that somehow that's going to help. And that will help if you're doing things like architecture or your job or something in the external world, but that's not going to help you at all with discovering who you are and living a happy life,
Hmm.
because that's it's just the wrong mind. So again, it's like, which mind is this? Oh, it's actually my material mind trying to sort out something about my spirit. Okay, well, I know that's the wrong place to look. That's like going to a restaurant to look for clothing. I just wouldn't do that. Right? So
Do you think that there is like a larger collective energy on the planet right now that's
mhm.
causing more people to feel restless, to feel lost, to be in a place where they're struggling to make decisions? Because I feel like I'm seeing that more than I've ever seen that before. But
Yeah.
I'd love to know, 'cause since you're on the other side of the world,
Mhm.
what you're seeing and what you're feeling and how your and students are responding to you.
Yeah, it's definitely true. There's an energy that's been hitting the planet for a couple decades now that's really raising the vibration up,
Mhm.
and it's really uncomfortable. What it's doing is it's pushing each of us to release our heavy energies so that we can rise up frequency wise as well. And that's kind of the simplest way to say it. And so, if there's something heavy that you're holding on to, this is like chapter one in Hisami's Spirit Mind Training. If there's something heavy that you're holding on to, uh, that's that's what's going to cause frustration and turmoil. And so this energy is like just kind of pounding on the heavy energies inside us, just lighting them up over and over so that we can let them go. But not everybody is excited about personal growth. A lot of people are
Mm.
afraid to grow. You're moving from what you know, even if it's not working, into this unknown space. So it does take a little bit of kind of faith or belief in yourself that, hey, I'm just moving into a space of love. I'm just doing things that I enjoy more. I'm just letting go of the things that feel heavy. Like, sure,
Mm.
that sounds reasonable. That's going to work out for me. I don't have to be afraid of letting go of these things. But it is getting more intense. Things are getting more and more intense on the planet. Also, we're fundamentally linked to or part of what's happening globally as far as climate change on the planet. Just like the planet is overheating, our material minds are overheating. And in
Ooh,
fact, it's probably our overheating material mind that's causing some of the planetary overheating.
yeah,
Now, there's we're not separate at all from the planet and
yeah.
everything on it. And so this is going to intensify. At this point, even if we do a perfect job of cutting our CO2 emissions, and we've created enough momentum that things are going to it's going to be a little rough ride for a little while, at least through our lifetimes. And that rough ride is not just on the outside; it's on the inside too. It doesn't mean it has to be terrible or that should be afraid. It's really just a call to say, okay, if things are going to get a little rough, then that's a good time to be a little better at surfing, right? I need to learn to surf those waves to get knocked over by them, right? It's a good time. Maybe
Yeah,
I should do a little swimming exercises. So when the water's coming in, I don't mean literally, but maybe it could be too. But so that I've
yeah,
got a little more uh, practice. Don't the
yeah,
longer we wait to prepare ourselves internally, the harder it is when it comes to the time where something comes up and boom, it's just right in my face. I'm emotionally charged. I have to do something. But if it's the first time I've ever looked within, it's going to be a little challenging. So I encourage people to
yeah.
kind of start now, start on the small stuff, get used to bringing your awareness within, and you can live gracefully and beautifully even through difficult times. And that's
Yeah,
kind of
that reminds me of
the
another
challenge we have.
saying. This astrologer, Lavendar, she always says either come now or come later, but like everyone's coming, like
Yeah.
everyone's going to move and evolve. So you can either jump on the train now or do it later, but no one's can get out of this alive without evolving a little bit and learning to tune in.
Yeah,
And maybe that's
definitely.
why more people are getting curious about energy healing and want to find someone that can work on them or want to learn how to do it themselves. Can you tell me
Yeah,
more about the class that you teach?
sure. Yeah, so there's kind of two main passions that I'm teaching right now. So
Yeah.
one is energy work. So if you want to learn about your energy body and how to do hands-on healing and energy
Hmm.
healing on yourself, then that's all covered in my training at Mindvalley. It's called Duality, and we go into how to ground your body, how to work with your aura, how to work with your chakras, and what I love about that class is it's not just kind of esoteric or historic perspective on these things.
Hmm.
It takes both sides of me where it's like, how do I use these tools in daily life? Like, what if I want to get a parking spot? What if I want to what if I want to, change something like right now in this moment? Can I use
Yeah.
energy tools to help me make decisions, to have more fun, to like lighten the load a little bit? And the answer is yes. So it's a very kind of a applied energy work class. So if you're just getting started with energy work, uh, that's kind of a nice, safe place. There's lots of
Hmm.
information there, even though the goal is to actually get out of the information. There's a lot there about, your mind is going to feel really safe in that program.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
That's funny.
the second passion, the second passion is with my wife, is spirit mind
Yeah.
training. My wife Hisami, it's really her training, and my role there is to kind of be the navigator. So throughout the training, as she's teaching about the very simple and profound message about how spirit mind works and how you can bring your energy back into spirit mind, I'm telling my stories about learning. Like, oh, when I first heard about this, I was sure Isami was saying my mind is bad and spirit mind is good, and so I need to do this one more and this one less. And then
Mhm.
later I realized she never said that and she doesn't mean that at all. Like, this is about having both things equally, about loving both sides of you and learning to work together. So all the little places where it's easy to misunderstand or get stuck or get confused, that's my role, is to kind of navigate through all that. And it's fun because it makes me be a lot more vulnerable. In the Mind Valley programs, I get to be the expert. Like, I'm just,
Yeah.
here's all the stuff I know and how great it is and my successes. And then in the Spirit Mind training, I get to say, wow, here's all the places where I got stuck or got confused or I'm still working on myself. And, for me, having both of those playgrounds to express myself in it's really nice for me. And I think a lot of students feel relief when they realize oh, my teacher, this person that I respect, isn't perfect. They're living a life just like me and dealing with, just finding ways to live gracefully and joyfully,
Yeah.
rather than I followed some steps and now there's no problems anymore. Because if that's what we think we're living up to, we're always going to be disappointed.
Yeah, I
So
think and I keep turning to spiritual practitioners. And the reason I do
mhm,
this podcast is because I'm always looking for tools for my tool belt for
mhm,
when the times are down, for when
yeah,
you've fallen and you're struggling to get back up and your faith is low. You still have to figure out how to get up and move
yeah,
on or evolve.
mhm,
So I think these tools never get old. And sometimes we have to be reminded of them over and over and over again.
yeah.
What are the tools that you sometimes forget about and then pick back up at different times in your life?
That's a good question. The tools I forget about. Probably comes down to the basics. If things get really intense with, I've got like an event coming up, or I'm feeling like there's a deadline that I set for myself that I'm having a hard time making. Uh, well, I get wrapped up in that, just like we all do. So
Hmm.
I'll get in that energy of expectation versus what's happening now, and I sort of get out of present time. I get out of the present moment, and when
Hmm.
that happens, just like everybody else, I don't feel very good. I feel like a little disappointed, or I feel overwhelmed with like this
Hmm.
pressure to do a bunch of things. And fortunately, I have a lot of good tools. So the very simple ones, with Hisami, she's such a great model because. Uh, Naturally she is always in spirit mind. She doesn't have a very strong material mind out there. It's just for whatever reason she never developed that. She just maintained this like always on strong connection with source. And so when I see her, it's just such a stark contrast when I'm out of sorts that it reminds me like, okay, I don't have to be feeling bad right now. I don't, even in the same situation, I could be feeling good. I don't have to feel high pressure. I don't have to feel disappointment. And just realizing that is enough for me to start to come back. And then I'll do even a simple practice. Like today, I was walking over to the office here before this interview, and I noticed I was sort of walking, to the place, and then I was like, "Oh, wait a minute, I'm kind of missing out here." And so I slowed down a little bit, a few steps, I was like, "Oh yeah, this is a beautiful walk here. I enjoy when I walk to work." And all of a sudden, I started noticing the trees going by and like feeling really good, feeling my feet on the pavement, and uh, my whole perspective changed. All of a sudden, I was in there in the moment, and it's possible it took me an extra minute to get to work, but but um, but I enjoyed it. I was there for all the time in between. So I gained
Yeah.
all the time that I slowed down and was in the present moment. I gained all that time. Where if I was just thinking about the future trying to get to it, I'm actually losing all that time because I'm not in it. Yeah.
That's a good
Yeah.
reminder that we all need, especially if you're in California where I am and you spend a lot of time in the car. It's hard to stay present sometime, and I think that's why we see the weird behavior on the road sometimes. Everyone's in a vehicle with a destination in mind, getting lost in the moment.
Yeah, but it's a great opportunity though because you're likely by yourself. Unfortunately, most people are
Hmm.
driving their own cars, not
Hmm.
carpooling or something. But I remember when I was driving to my job in Colorado. I lived in Denver and I was working in Boulder. And when I got in the car, right away I just hit the radio and turned it on, and that was just sort of automatic. And then one day it occurred to me that before I turn the radio on, like something whatever's automatic for you, like
Yeah.
before that happens, I'm just going to let that remind me, oh, why don't I ground myself first? And then just check my energy. And and then so that day I did that. I grounded myself on the way to work. I was running my energy. I was starting to notice, like, see the other drivers around me. Like, I wonder if I can kind of sense the auras of people around me. I wonder if I can, figure out which road is going to be smoother today. I just, like, the energy world is so fascinating to me. Once I
Yeah.
got there, I totally forgot. I didn't turn the radio on at all. And I realized it's kind of strange. It was at least 6 months later when I realized I haven't listened to the radio since that day. Like now, when I get in my car, what it means for me is this is, I've got a half an hour here where there's nothing else I can do. I'm in the car. So perfect time to work on energy work, perfect time to go within, breathe, meditate, whatever practice you have. The car is
Yeah.
great for that
Yeah. I
because
haven't
there's
turned on the
a generation.
radio since March 2020. So 4 years.
That's great.
I like driving in silence, but sometimes our thoughts can overwhelm us, or again, we can ruminate on something. What's a practice that we could do while we're driving for 30 minutes to make our
Mhm.
mindset, to get back that time, to make it more
Sure.
worth our while?
Yeah, that's perfect. That's a really fun exercise. So when you're driving, you're just going to
Yeah.
start sorting through your thoughts. So just move kind of your awareness. Just imagine you're kind of moving up and back a little bit, so you're really present in your head, and that you can watch your thoughts, not just
Okay.
have them. So you can just get
Yeah.
just a tiny bit of distance from them, and then when they come up, you're gonna. Oh, looks like I'm back. Okay, can you
Yeah.
hear me? All right.
Welcome
So
back. Yes.
yeah, great. I don't know what happened. So, yeah, so when you're in the car and you're driving, so
Hmm.
get a little distance from your thoughts, and then
Hmm.
when they come up, you're just gonna start to categorize them. So you're gonna like say, this thought. You can do it mentally, like you can say, oh, this is a thought that comes from somebody else, so I'm gonna put it over there. This is a thought that's mine, so I'm going to put it in here. You can do like future and past. Like, is this about the past, present, or future? Oh, that's about the future. Let's put it over there. I don't need to think about it yet. Oh, this was something I'm regretting from the past. That's already done. I'm going to put it over here in the past. Or I'm going to put it behind me. You can drive by it, let it go, like go by.
Yeah.
Oh, this one's about the present. I'm going to put that in the seat next to me. I'm going to bring that with me. The future one I'm going to put down there on the road, or I'm going to put it out at my house when I get home when I need it. Just kind of organize, right? And don't think about the thoughts, right? It's not about
Yeah.
is it right or wrong, or think about it. You're just organizing it in time and space because it's all energy, and you'll find that it's so refreshing because if there's something you need to think about when you get home, if you've kind of put it there, when you walk up, naturally that energy will sort of come to mind. Be like,
Yes.
it's like getting your little inbox at home. You don't even have to remember to do it; it'll automatically come up. And in the
Yeah.
meantime, you like, whew, all of a sudden you get your space back. You're like, oh, now what I have, maybe do this sorting exercise. It takes a few minutes. Might take the whole half hour, but maybe it's just a few minutes. And you're like, oh, okay, what was in that now pile? Let me just check my seat
Yeah.
over here. Oh yeah, there's just like two things I wanted to that are really present time. And then I'm just gonna like enjoy those things. And again, you don't even have to think about them. Just enjoy the energy perspective. Just observing them and experiencing them as energy.
Yeah. I love this practice.
Yeah, it's a fun one. And the same thing for things around you too. Like if you see somebody like angry in the car next to you, or somebody sad in the
Hmm.
car beside you, and like just notice the energy, like, yeah, that person's really, instead of that's an angry person, say, that's a person that's experiencing anger energy right now. There's a lot of anger circulating through their life. I feel a lot of compassion for that person because I know I've had anger circulate through me and it doesn't feel good. Instead of resisting the person, you start to feel compassion when you can see them energetically. Like, there's a person who's feeling really sad. They're feeling, instead of a sad person, they're a person that's has sadness energy circulating in their life right now. I hope they find some relief.
Hmm.
To send a little love their way. So
Hmm.
it makes the commute really really fun.
Yeah, I love this. I'm going to try it because I spent a lot of time driving to the grocery store and
Yeah, yeah.
back. I would love to know, for those that are listening and this is really intriguing them and they're thinking, I really want to work on my psychic development. I want to work on better feeling, trusting in my intuition, allowing that to guide me. Do you have one simple little exercise that you could share?
For intuition, I mean the one we just talked about is really good, but let me see if I have another one. So yeah, okay. So with intuition, I think probably the one that comes to mind is a little expansion. So most people are trying to figure out what with their intuition. It's like, what is the answer?
Mm,
And that's okay, that can be helpful. But more importantly, I would say start using your intuition to understand when. So, when will this answer be available? When will I have
mm,
clarity on that? So, if I'm feeling like say, maybe I'm in a relationship, kind of thinking from my past examples, I'm in a relationship and I don't really know, like, is this going to continue? Do I want to lean in more? Do I want to lean out? I'm not sure. If I just try to think what is the answer with my intuition, I'm likely to not get a clear answer. I might, in fact, a lot of people in my class would say this. I tune in over and over. Like I get yes one day, I get no the next day, I get yes the next day, I get no the next day. I go back and
I
forth.
know
My
exactly.
intuition's obviously broken. And I'm saying, no, no, you're just not understanding your intuition. What your intuition is telling you is that there's no clear answer right now, that the answer is fluctuating between yes and no, even day to day.
Hmm.
And that's your intuition's telling you that very clearly. So instead of thinking your intuition's broken, ask the next question, which is, when will I have clarity on this?
I have
Like,
clarity.
oh, in about 2 months or 2 weeks or whatever it comes to you. And it's like, okay, well, if I'm not going to have clarity for another 2 weeks, there's really no reason for me to think about it every minute for 2 weeks and be confused and frustrated and feel like my intuition's broken. So I'm just going to send a little love out to my future self in 2 weeks. So a
Hmm.
reminder like, hey, the answer is clear. Now's a good time to tune in. And then I'm going to check in then. If you like reminders, you can even make a little reminder for yourself, check in then. But for me, I just do it energetically. I find that's easier.
Yeah.
But so start asking this question of when instead of what or why. A lot of times you want to know, why is this happening? It's not really important. Probably the real question you have is, when will I experience something different? When will
Mm.
things shift? That's probably what you want to know, not why is it happening. That's actually not that
Yeah.
important.
That's a great lesson for in practice for so many people.
Or
I
even
would,
who. People want to know who did it.
yeah.
That's the other thing we ask. Like, whose fault is it? Also not important.
Yeah.
When is it gonna when are things gonna feel better? When am I gonna have clarity? That's how I would recommend using intuition.
I like that. When are things going to feel better
Or more clear.
or more clear? I'm going to try that. I would love to know, where do you turn to keep learning about spirituality, about wellness, about
Mhm.
health? What avenues, where do you look to continue to explore and evolve?
Yeah, that's interesting. At this point, and again, this has to do with my wife Hisami. I just look at daily life.
Mhm.
So this is a big part of her teaching, that daily life is your spiritual workshop. So you don't need to go find anything.
Mhm.
Everything is coming to you. So like today, I was walking to work and I noticed, oh, I'm kind of leaning forward and walking fast. Ah, daily life just gave me a great lesson, where I observed myself and I was able to shift and change. Or, you meet somebody in daily life or something happens at your job or with your health. Like there's always stuff happening that you can tune in and find more grace with. Or you can look
Mhm.
at, I can look at, I don't know why, but that thing really bothered me. My emotions got all stirred up there.
Mm.
So that's interesting. Instead of just saying, whose fault was it? What happened? Why? Right? I'm going to say, that thing really bothered me. So I'm going to just kind of tune in and say, where's that heavy energy within me? Or which mind is this? My material mind, my emotions got stirred up. Okay, can I just breathe and bring it back? Will that change my perspective? Oh, actually, it does. Surprising. Or I can't seem to bring things into balance. When will it feel better? When will I be able to do that? That's going to take a couple
Mhm.
hours. Okay, I can wait a couple hours. Yeah, so daily life has everything we need. You don't need to look outside for a workshop.
Another question I had was, you have lived in a variety of places, Sedona being one of them. You're in Japan
Yeah.
now. How do you feel about the vibration of different places? Have
Mhm.
you found that living in certain places bring you more clarity, make you feel
Mhm.
more grounded? Do you notice a difference in the places you live and how it affects you in a positive or negative way?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you're living in a place where there's more coherent vibrations, more coherent energy, what that means is just instead of everything going in all different directions, it's kind of all the energies
Hmm.
lined up in one direction. So it's like if on your guitar, if you tune your guitar up, everything sounds good together. But if a
Hmm.
couple are out of tune, doesn't matter how well you play, it's going to sound a little, kind of off. Something's wrong. So that's about coherence, right? So
Yeah.
some places naturally have a highly coherent field. That's why I moved to Sedona. Sedona is
Hmm.
one of those places where just coming into town, you feel
Yeah.
different. I
Yeah.
could feel the energy. But the first time I got there, we were actually driving down the canyon. We were still like a half hour away, and I could feel the energy. And I was like, "Whoa, I'm moving here." I'm like, "What am I? Why am I saying that? I haven't even been here yet. Like, I'm not even to the town, and I'm moving here. What? I don't want to move." Yeah, it's like this mind is going through all the logic, but I know
Yeah.
inside, I'm like, "Whoa,
Yeah.
this is this." I have this deep knowingness and excitement, even though the material mind is kind of giving me all the reasons why that's silly. So there it's really easy. A high vibration place it's easier to tune in, but also your stuff is going to come up faster. So
Mm.
a veteran in Sedona, when I moved there, said, if you're going to live here, just remember once a week to get out of town for a day. Go to Flagstaff, go to Phoenix. Just you need to get out of the vortex at least once a week, or you're going to go crazy. and
Yeah.
and he was really serious, so I kind of listened to him because he was so intense, right? But then
Yeah.
I noticed over the years, it's totally right. If you just stay in that vibration place,
Mhm.
it's like standing in that new energy that's poking at your heavy energies. So all your heavy stuff's going to come up to be released over and over and over. It can get a little exhausting. So
Okay.
I think sometimes it's nice to like go to a place where things are a little less intense, take
Mhm.
a break, kind of wind down. But I would also say that any environment you're in is manageable too. So moving from Sedona, which is like living in a national park, to
Mhm.
Tokyo, which is the world's biggest metropolis, right? Quite a challenge energetically. For the first month or so, I just felt like there's just too much noise coming in.
Mhm. Yes.
And there's just this buzz all the time of people, electronics, noise, just everything. It was really disturbing. And I mentioned it to my wife, and even now we don't fluently speak each other's language. So at the time, then it was really barely any words. But I mentioned it to her, and she said, "Oh, well, why don't you adjust your aura to the environment you're in?" I was like, "Oh, I totally didn't think about that, but I've been used to living in a national park. My aura is gigantic, right? It's like a city size. I'm walking around. There's not that many people. I'm in nature. That's totally appropriate. But if you walk around Tokyo like that, there's a million people in your aura, right? So I just brought my aura in close to my body. It's like, ah, whew, relief. This is perfect.
Yeah.
And then I felt totally fine. So
Wow.
it wasn't the environment that was creating the problem. It was that I wasn't adapting to the environment.
Yeah.
And so it's one of the reasons for just learning basic energy tools can really, really help. Just that one of kind of, we put up a little rose at the edge of your space, right, one right here. And just imagine a rose at the end of your aura, the edge of your aura like this.
Yeah.
And it's just going to everybody else's energy is going to kind of stop there. So
Yeah.
I'm giving myself permission to have all the space between this rose and here for myself. And then I'm giving other people permission to have all the rest of the space in the entire universe. Like I just want this part here. You can have everything else. That's a really generous offer. And when you do that, when you have a clear sense of your boundaries, what felt like a very noisy, challenging environment shifts like that because suddenly you're able to be present and have your space.
Mhm.
People here in Tokyo, the students early on when I was teaching here would talk about the train. And the students would come back after the Aura week, they'd say, what were your success stories? They'd say, I hate riding on the train. It's super crowded. There's people touching me.
Yeah.
It's always made me uncomfortable. And this week, no problem. I just put up a rose and no problem. I can't believe it. It's like, yeah, energy works. Energy tools work.
Yeah. So in Tokyo, do you teach in-person classes or are all your classes online now?
Right now, everything's online, but we
Okay.
may shift back, start teaching some live stuff again in the next year or two. But right now, it's all online.
Well, I'm going to have the links to your classes in the show notes, but if people want to continue to learn from you, where do you suggest that they follow you and connect with you?
Yeah. So if you're on the web, you can go to spiritmind.com. If you're interested in the Spirit Mind training, that'll actually take you right into an invitation to go to the training. If you're looking for me, you can look for either jeffreyallen.love or you can look
Mhm.
for iamjeffreyallen.com. Those are kind of go to the same
Mhm.
place.
Mhm.
And same thing on social media. So you'll find my Jeffrey Allen accounts and my Spirit Mind accounts. We're just kind of getting the Spirit Mind information out into social media. So those are kind of young, but there's a lot of fun content there.
Perfect. And then can you leave our listener with maybe one last health, wellness, or spiritual tip that they can consider adding into their life?
Yeah, let's see. One tip I would say, if I tune into your listeners, what I see is a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of kind of excitement about getting to the future. And so
Ooh,
everybody's leaning a little bit forward.
yeah.
And and that's great. Being excited about the future is wonderful. You want to keep that even when the future looks scary, keep the enthusiasm about the future, right? um,
Yeah.
but don't forget to be here in present time and enjoy this too. Your
Yeah.
listeners actually look pretty balanced. All of you your energy looks really good. But that's one thing I'd say is notice, like I did today, notice when you're walking fast toward the next thing, energetically or physically, and just remember, like, oh, I'm going to get there whether I walk fast or not. I might as well kind of enjoy the ride here, enjoy
Mm,
being in the present moment and holding that enthusiasm for the future that you're creating. Like have them both, and I think that'll help people have a little more joy right today, right in this moment.
Yes. And that's what we all need right now is a little more joy in the present
Yeah.
moment, which I think will percolate out the way we want it all to within our communities and the
Mhm.
universe.
Oh yeah, that's how we
So,
change the world. We just change ourselves.
exactly. Yeah. So that's why I love having practitioners like you on because it's these little tools that allow us to actually work on ourselves to affect the town we live in, the community that we're a part of, which then ripples out on a bigger scale.
Yeah, that's
Well,
great. Yeah,
Jeffrey,
thanks, Whitney.
thank you so much for coming on the show. This was such a treat.
Yeah, thank you. It was my pleasure. And yeah, thanks for the great questions, great energy. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And I hope you get some great tools you can use.
Absolutely. Hi, friends. Welcome back to the High Vibration Living Podcast. I'm your host, Chef Whitney Aronoff, founder of Starseed Kitchen and High Vibration Foods. Today, I'm chatting with Jeffrey Allen. He is a very popular Mindvalley author and speaker, a powerful energy healer, and really a pioneer in the online energy training space. Through his online programs, he has introduced more than 1 million people worldwide to energy healing, improving their relationships, deepen their spiritual connection, their psychic abilities, their personal presence, their happiness. He teaches a variety of really incredible online classes to better help you understand working with energy, getting to know yourself, and healing yourself. And this is such a big part of the High Vibration Living podcast, is helping you guys understand that, food is your foundation. And then you have your physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental bodies. You have multiple layers of yourself that you have to nourish and awaken and understand. And that's a big part of what Jeffrey Allen does, is helping you understand your spiritual body, and something also that he calls his spirit mind. So that's what we get into in this episode. We talk about some spiritual practices that you can do walking down the street, driving in your car, at night after a long day, to just get back in your body, back into your presence, back into your heart, and away from your material mind so you can better understand and hear and feel what it is you really want to be doing every day and experiencing in the moment and moving towards on this journey of life. He's really into helping people just get back into energizing their life, being present, being engaged, having fun, filling a life with curiosity. So his tools that you learn in this episode, I think will be really helpful. I highly suggest you check out Jeffrey Allen on Instagram and his website, as well as Mindvalley on Instagram and their website. I think you'll gain a lot of tools from listening to Jeffrey Allen speak. He has a great presence. I think you'll find the episode calming and heart-centered and just really valuable takeaways. So enjoy this beautiful session with Jeffrey. It was such a treat to speak with him. And let me know what you guys learned from the episode. You can comment on clips from this episode on Instagram through the High Vibration Living Instagram handle. We'll be posting reels and videos from this episode. You can also leave a review on Apple Podcasts. And after you leave a 5-star review, you can leave a comment. And that's great about Apple Podcasts is I can see your comment and you can let me know what you learned from this episode, what you liked from this episode, what you want to hear more of. And that can help guide me on the type of guests and topics that I can continue to bring to you here on the High Vibration Living Podcast. So without further ado, enjoy this episode. I will be listening to it myself quite a few times and implementing the practices that Jeffrey shared. So cheers and enjoy.